available on Eventbrite. This event is not Zoomed or recorded, so you will have to come to see the concert in the traditional manner here. So we are looking forward to it. We got guests, one voice chorus, and the Chorescence Trio as well performing. In addition to Euphonia doing a set, we're also going to have some mass choir pieces at the end and a whole bunch of sing-along seasonal favorites for everyone. I think there's about 8 or 10 sing-along songs as well, which is going to be a pile of fun. So please do attend. We look forward to seeing you.
We're very excited about that. Some opening words for us this morning from Reverend Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf. In faith. This is a congregation that gathers in faith. Not faith in one religion or in one God or any one way. We gather in faith of the power of diversity, the power of love, and the hope of a world transformed by care. We gather in faith in ourselves and in those around us, not a faith that requires perfection or rightness in one another. Rather, a faith that in our shared imperfection, we may learn to stumble and fall together. Faith that we will help one another to rise and to try again and again. We are Unitarian Universalists. And we light our chalice this morning with the words of Reverend Inan Soto. We light our children's lantern that will go with Sheila down to their classes. There must be a spark. There must be oxygen. We have principles and ethics, the fuel of the fire we would light. The spark is what passes between us, along with our aliveness, our possibility. Spirit moving in us is our clear invitation, embossed, addressed, sealed with wax, tied with a ribbon. The spark is a seed of fire that must be treasured and tended that it may bring light. We have passion, the air without which nothing thrives, least of all the blaze of covenant, justice and kindness we would illuminate, both with who we are and what we do. All of these an invitation to bring to life the blaze of liberation that is meant to light our way and to dispel the fog of cruelty and grief. It brings us instead to a hearth around which we gather to be nourished, energized, and warmed, and where we get ready to disperse, enlivened. Please rise, embody your spirit, and join us in singing, Here We Are Gathered.
right. It is so nice to see all of you on this wonderful end of November morning. And the lines of a song, "Come, Come, Whoever You Are going through my head because I think about how we show up as our authentic selves. And I think of myself this morning. I woke up with a terrible cold and it was too late to call anyone, but secretly I wanted to come and tell my story anyway. So I've been wearing a mask and staying away from everyone, so you won't see me at coffee time, but I want to give air hugs to everyone this morning. Thank you. And as part of a difficult morning, because sometimes we are showing up as our happy best selves. Sometimes we're showing up with our cold selves. And sometimes just everything seems to go wrong. So the heel of my boot broke off 30 seconds ago, and I have scotch taped it. So if it falls off down the hall, say nothing. Just let it go. Just let it go. And so I'm Dearie Sheila, or Sheila McMaster, Director of Religious Education here at the Calgary Unitarians, and my pronouns are she and her. And we've had a bit of a staff changeover. So as you know, I run the children and youth programs, and I have 2 helpers who help me downstairs because we have a number of different classes. And so many of you know Jacob, who's changed his name now to Fable, and his pronouns are he, him, or they, them. So it's flexible. And then we also had Mateusz, who's wonderful. And he's moved on because he got elected as part of the student council at the university. Yay! And so he's happy to come back when that job's over because he's like, I love it here. But while he's away, we've hired a new person named Emily, and their pronouns are they, them. And so Emily's just starting their training downstairs. And so if you see Emily, feel free to say hello. And also, we might have some new people who are coming here for the first time today. So if anybody wants to email me to get into the loop of all the fun things that I do, if you're between the ages of 16 and 50, I mean, you can email me if you're older, that's cool. But if you're between 16 and 50, I run the Young at Heart group. And so my email is dre@calgaryunitarian.ca, and I'll hook you up with all the fun things that we do. We go out to movies and dinner and things like that. It's a lot of fun. And if you're new in something we used to do, and we haven't been doing it lately, but if you're new and you want people to talk to you, pick a blue cup. And even if you're not new and you want people to talk to you, you can be like, hey, no, I've never been here before. Tell me more, and just grab a blue cup. And today, the children and youth are inviting connection and understanding by making open letters. Now, what is an open letter? It's a letter you give someone with instructions for opening at a later time. So it can be like, open when you miss me, or open when you're sad, or open at graduation, open upon my death. Things like that is an open letter. Hopefully, you'll get some before then. So the kids are actually doing ones that are like for when you are sad, or when you need a laugh, or when you're bored, and they can give that to family or friends, or just someone they think might need a boost. So we'll be creating some of those today downstairs. And as we're exploring how we want to be understood and how we want to understand others, I have a great story to share. And the book is called Bird Boy by Matthew Burgess. Nico was nervous walking the path to class alone with a backpack full of stones. At least that's how it felt. Nico was new, so when everyone knew what to do and where to go, he was left, well, a little lost. But there were other things to do besides sports and standing in huddles and whispering, such as watching the insects cross the crack on the blacktop like climbers over a mountain path, or sitting in the grass like a statue with the sun full on your face until one bird hopped towards him, waiting with shining eyes and a side-curved head. And one bird, then 2, word had spread. And flutter and swoop and whistle and chirp, that is how Nico became known as Bird Boy. Nico knew when someone was making fun of him, and yes, it hurt his feelings, but he turned the name over in his mind a few times and smiled. It surprised him too. Bird Boy. Soon Nico imagined himself as an eagle soaring over the forest, and a penguin diving off an iceberg into freezing aquamarine waters, and he became a hummingbird hovering amid the nectar-filled flowers, and a pelican with wide open wings cruising the edge of the coastline, and a great green winged macaw piercing the dusk with her calls. Not right away, but soon, Nico made one friend, then two. They were drawn to Nico's kindness and the wild flights of his imagination, and the way he could be both a bird and completely, delightfully himself. And Nico no longer felt nervous at recess or walking the path to class alone. In fact, sometimes he felt just a few flaps away from liftoff. The end. And like Nico, I hope that each of us can embrace those unique things about ourselves, those things that are authentic and make us who we are, to let go of the fear of living out loud, because that's when we attract our true friends who accept us for who we truly are. And now please join me as we sing Go Now in Peace.
Thank you, Sheila. We love you. With or without your heel. Oh my. There are days like these. My dear ones, now's a time when we center ourselves in our hearts, our love, our care and compassion for one another, and we light our candles of joys and concerns, knowing that we need one another in this life, to hold each other, to support one another, to laugh together, to cry together, to be that beloved community by sharing the bonds of love and friendship. We light a candle for all of our joys, the celebrations, the good news, all of the things that are exciting and fun to share with one another, like having Reverend Donna with us today is very exciting. We had our Beyond Categorical Thinking retreat yesterday that many of you attended, and we're going to hear more about that from Reverend Donna today. And we light a candle for our cares, our sorrows, our grief, anything that we need help to carry. We're always thinking of Jane and Cora. Jane had good news. She's had one of her 3 drains removed. So there is slow but steady progress happening. That's a very, very good news. And we're thinking of Conrad. We haven't seen him in so long. He is still in Vernon Fanning Rehabilitation Center and welcoming visitors now. But there's so much rehab going on that there's a strict schedule that has to be followed. So he has his cell phone with him. You can contact him, phone or text, and make arrangements. I'm sure he would love to see your smiling faces. And we look forward to the time when he can come back. We light a global candle because we know everybody everywhere has joys and sorrows. And we want to join our hearts and our light with others in making the world that much more loving, that much more peaceful, and that much more kind. Speaking of birds, I have noticed the geese are very busy these days with their migrations. So to all of our geese siblings, we wish you traveling mercies. We love you. And now you may come forward and light a candle or place a pebble in the waters of communal love and support as we learn a new song. This is from Rebecca Parker, Reverend Rebecca Parker. There is a love. And now the words of Laura Hershey, telling. What you risk telling your story, you will bore them. Your voice will break, your ink spill and stain your coat. No one will understand. Their eyes become fences. You will park yourself forever on the outside. Your differentness once and for all revealed. Dangerous. The names you give to yourself will become epithets. Your happiness will be called bravery, denial. Your sadness will justify their pity. Your fear will magnify their fears. Everything you say will prove something about their God or their economic system. Things that change day to day, kaleidoscopic, will freeze in place, brand you forever, justifying anything they decide to do with you. Those with power can afford to tell their story or not. Those without power risk everything to tell their story and must. Someone, somewhere will hear your story and decide to fight, to live, and refuse compromise. Someone else will tell their own story, risking everything.
1, 2, 3, 4. I feel change is coming. Feel the change is coming. I feel the change is coming. I feel the change is coming. Can you hear the word? Calling out for change. Is this the world we become? Even through the pain, we can still find the love calling to us, bringing us home. I feel the change is coming. I feel the change is coming. If we're united, we can be it. Change is coming. I feel the change is coming. If we're united, we can be the change. We won't stand alone. We will reach out our hand as we fall to you. Will you join us and take a stand? I feel change is coming. I feel change is coming. If we're united, we can be it. I feel change is coming. I feel change is coming. If we're united, we can be the change. Every voice must be heard. Listen up and hear us. Every voice must be heard. Listen up and hear us. I feel a change is coming. I feel a change is coming. If we're united, we can be it. I feel a change is coming. I feel a change is coming. If we're united, we can be the change. I feel a change is coming. I feel a change is coming. If we're united, we can be it. I feel a change is coming. I feel a change is coming. If we're united, we can be the change.
Mitch, would you see if we can, it looks like we're having trouble with Zoom and How we doing back there, guys? Are we okay? We're good. Okay, excellent. My pleasure to introduce you to Reverend Donna Dahlem, coming to us from Portland, Maine. There she is. Hi, Reverend Donna. Good morning.
Good morning. It is such an honor to have this opportunity to spend the weekend with you. And wow, what a service and what an amazing group of people. As you travel.
Uh-oh.
Let's see what happens here. All right. Well, if we're going to have an echo, it's lovely to have it on the word love. Beyond Categorical Thinking is a Unitarian Universalist Association program designed to help congregations understand more deeply the impact of categorical thinking on a search process for a settled minister specifically, but congregational life more generally. So categorical thinking comes naturally to us. We look someone over or we get a picture of them from their voice, and we start to decide at the speed of light who we think they are, what race or ethnicity we think they are, can they walk, who are they with, what gender are they. But it's not just the noticing that takes us down this trail of figuring someone out. It's our own internalized stories. These stories are full. They fill us up, and they are the foundations of our beliefs about ourselves and others. And we all tend to live out these narratives, especially if we haven't taken a pause to think about what they are. These narratives are built out of our experiences, our position in society, and they are structured and integrated as we try to make sense of the world and kind of maintain our equilibrium. These are the stories of our parents, our grandparents, our teachers, family and friends, ancestors, as well as so often the dominant society, shaping us and informing how we go about our lives. Some of these stories are deeply embedded in the systemic issues of racism and injustice that I, and perhaps you, live out every day. Our Unitarian Universalist principles call us to engage in dismantling these complex systems of oppression and our roles in them. As your website states, and I quote, "We are united by values rather than belief in one set creed or dogma. Our values include acceptance of one another, compassion, a commitment to justice and equity." It goes on. "We believe in exploring the mysteries of life. We believe in ethical living. We believe in living out our spirituality in this world by working for peace, justice, equity, democracy, and respect for one another, as well as for the interdependent web of life, of which we are all a part. We believe that it is not who or what you believe in, but rather how you live your life." Closed quote. Our faith provides us with a sanctuary of beloved community in which we can reflect on how all the years of accumulated life culminates in what we believe and how we behave. I grew up in the US in Waterville, Maine, where I worshiped at St. Mark's Episcopal Church, but attended Mount Mercy Academy, the local Catholic elementary school. If that wasn't confusing enough, my mother read me Bible stories, but preempted them with phrases like, "Remember, Donna, these are just stories to learn by. And you know, Jesus wasn't really born in the winter." With an Episcopal and Catholic upbringing tinged with a humanist interpretation of the Bible, it makes perfect sense to me now to find that I'm Unitarian Universalist. I learned a lot growing up from home, family, friends, church, and school. From my school, Mount Mercy, I learned how to swear in French. I learned making friends wasn't about who had the best outfit, since we all wore the same one. And I learned that I could get more dessert on Lima Bean Day by trading with my classmates. I'll eat your lima beans if you give me your dessert. There were a couple of winners on Lima Bean Day, and it always really worked out well for me because I liked both lima beans and dessert. And there was a lot of pressure to eat those lima beans in the cafeteria. I've also learned some helpful and not so helpful hints growing up. I learned that if things looked pretty far down, they probably were, which I learned from jumping from great heights, sometimes out of trees. And those were handy lessons. However, it was not so helpful to learn that if you learned differently than the school taught, that you weren't smart. And it was this lesson that led me to being perceived in grade school on through high school as someone who wasn't trying hard enough. I heard over and over again that if I tried harder, I'd be able to do it, to spell, to do the math, to succeed. Well, I did try, as every kid does, to succeed because I wanted to do it. I learned in my senior year in high school from my guidance counselor that I wasn't smart enough to go to college, which became crystal clear when he told me not to bother to apply. I probably wouldn't have applied if I hadn't already learned this wonderful skill from my mother of being stubborn. So it was with a fair amount of determination and a little bit of trepidation that I set out to college to prove my guidance counselor wrong. It turned out to be a driving motivator for my first year in college. However handy that was then, I can think of so many other ways to be motivated that lift our spirits. I've come to understand that his categorical thinking included perceptions of students with less than stellar grades as not smart enough to make it in college. What I didn't realize about myself then was that I had an undiagnosed learning disability. You might be thinking, something like that wouldn't happen anymore, and certainly not here where we are, but it could. A few years ago, I was the contact person for Beyond Categorical Thinking Weekend, which is what this is. So because I'm a little bit hard of hearing, I prefer email. And so I emailed as much about the details with the contact folks that I could. I wasn't able to make it to the search committee meeting, which is part of it. And I was told by my colleague later that they wondered if I was educated. Now, they didn't really want to know what school I went to. They wanted to know if I was smart enough to do the job. Now, I spell the same way I've always spelled. I don't discriminate. I misspell really long words and very short words. And some of your search committee members may be able to share with you, oh yeah, we might have picked up on that with Donna. Things like this continue to happen, and people tell me, but that wouldn't happen in our congregation. And I ask you to imagine what it was like when I visit and tell this story in another congregation, and someone comes up to me after the service who happens to be a guidance counselor and says to me, I think that maybe you misunderstood your guidance counselor, or perhaps he had other reasons that he made that recommendation for you. Now, I certainly don't have anything against guidance or school counselors, and indeed, I really believe the one I ended up with, falls into the minority when it comes to helping youth move into the future. The congregants' comments, though, were one way that they could back up from the discomfort that they were feeling in my story. It was a minimization for them, an erasure. I'm sure if you can take a moment, you may recall what it feels like being on the receiving end of some comment or experience that allowed you to realize there are times in life that you can be stung by feeling different, misunderstood, made fun of, left out, or left behind. There are and probably will continue to be times when someone makes a joke, calls a name, or laughs at someone in front of us. Perhaps we're so shocked we're not quite sure what to do, how to respond. We may not have the courage to speak up. Each of us may have thought about how it might feel being the target of such words or actions. But have we thought about the impact on our own spirits when we are silent witnesses? Ultimately, these experiences not only hurt the targeted individuals or groups, but diminish all of us in some way. Deconstructing barriers calls us to bear ourselves in ways that can feel uncomfortable. A few years ago, I attended the Changing Maine for Racial Justice event, and it was here that I engaged in practicing deconstructing my own entrenched ways. And it was here that I lived out my ever entrenched white privilege. I had stepped away from the workshop events for a moment, and upon my return, there were 60 people that had just started an activity. I stayed on the sidelines thinking to myself, well, I don't want to interrupt them. It sounded perfectly reasonable to me in my own mind. It was following the debrief of the exercise that the community organizer and consultant pointed out that she wanted to clarify that choosing not to engage in this exercise, this decentering whiteness exercise, is a privilege. My business, as usual ways of entitlement, had created a cozy out for me. And she was calling me back into relationship. It occurs to me that there are times I fall into what Alan Johnson calls the luxury of obliviousness, the sense of entitlement that entrenches some of us so deeply into privilege that we can't imagine what oppression is like for someone else, and we forego understanding its impact on others. Does this ever happen to you? This work of dismantling systems of oppression and our role in it, and this work of living out our Unitarian Universalist faith, is not for the faint of heart. It requires continued engagement with others, systems of accountability, and faith communities that can sustain us as we work toward a truly beloved community. And your mission statement to grow in wisdom, welcome and deepen relationships, and act for a just and sustainable world is an invitation to continue this journey, connecting, creating coalitions, collaborating, and transforming the world. May all of us take a few flaps and be just moments away from liftoff. May it be so.
Thank you, Reverend Donna. So inspiring. Talk at the same time. Such good words. Now is the time in our worship when we contribute our financial support to the mission, to the work of transformation, to the amazing work of love and justice in this world that this community carries. within, among, and beyond our walls. We give because we care about one another. We care about Calgary, and we care about the wider world. We want to make a difference, and we know that all of our contributions are important. Time, talent, and treasure combined, we do make a difference in this world. And our For Others recipient today is the Calgary Alliance for the Common Good. We know they are such important partners for us in our justice work, the way we collectively organize with over 35,000 people in Calgary to speak on behalf of those who have barriers to full inclusion, for whom life is made unjust. We want to speak up. We want to take action. We want to work on collective liberation. So this is an opportunity to show our generosity to Calgary Alliance for the Common Good as well. Your donations will be gratefully received. Thank you. Reverend Donna has some closing words for us.
These words are those of the Reverend Sean Dennison from the book Breaking and Blessing Meditations, available through In Spirit Books. At this moment of ending, may there be a good word, a blessing, to help us remember what we have so often forgotten. May the message we need be gently spoken and held in the spaces of our cells, the fibers that hold all we need to maintain our gentleness, our courage, and our hope. At this moment of ending, may the goodness we wish for ourselves and each other, this community, the ecosystem, planet, and stardust galaxy, become such a part of us that we cannot tell where the blessing ends and we begin. May we go in peace.
I invite those of you here in the hall to join us for coffee hour in Wickenden for some more conversation and connection. And those of you online, we will also have a link in the chat so that you can continue to visit and connect and get to know one another better. I extinguish our chalice with the words of Annie Dillard. We are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house. Please join me, rise in body or spirit, in singing Spirit of Life, and feel free to hold hands if it is your tradition